Hey, yo, it's Guido coming at you with a Tactics Talk, guys. Well, welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. And I just wanted to do a re-attack on the 122 TM because I did something with this tank I haven't done with a lot of the new tanks. I went to 100 battles pretty quickly because I really did enjoy this tank. And I want to talk a little bit about it because the various reviews on it are kind of all over the place. And that is actually a good thing. It means generally that the tank is fairly balanced. So some people like it, some are fairly neutral, some don't like it. That's good. If everybody was saying, oh, it's great, it's probably overpowered. Now, this thing is a bit of a bobject, though, which is a phrase coined by Skill, I believe. If somebody else came up with it, I think he's the one who made it famous. It may have been something he came up with as well. But what does that mean? It means a tank that you can't help but kind of do good in, because it has strengths that kind of keep you out of trouble and has capabilities that even mediocre to bad players can kind of use. What are those on this tank? It has usable armor based on the way the game is played. A fantastic turret. It gives it great hold down capability. It has good depression, which means it can use a lot of the terrain on the maps, and you don't have to work around a lot of fiddly mess with the maps. Say you have a -6 or a -5 can be difficult. Like I said, good turret. The gun handling is fantastic, and it hits hard. Now the DPM is low. That's a negative, but as a general rule, for mediocre to bad players, the accuracy of the gun is more important than the fact that it spits rounds down range, because it means they hit what they generally aim at. This thing can hardly help but hit something it aims at, as far as this game goes anyway. You know, there's still RNG. Also the pen, 233, I believe, is the standard round, which is fantastically high for a medium, and then 299 if you dab 2. So it really makes it a bit of a bobject Chinese version, which is a little bit different than the Russian versions. I'm going to show you two Ace Tanker games here and kind of illustrate how this tank can be used in its strong points. But really quickly, let's take a look at how I did on it, because you're coming up, it's Friday, you're coming up on the end of the marathon, and you may be wondering whether you want to pull the trigger on purchasing this or whether you're going to push through to get it for free if you've actually got that far. So we'll take a look at this thing. I did really well in this tank. It does suit my style. My style is a relatively aggressive style. I am usually up front. It almost doesn't matter what tank it is, often to my detriment. But tanks that are able to get up there, dish it out, and take it are tanks that I typically do well in. Usually heavies, things like that, but also mediums. Soft mediums I have a little bit of trouble with because I am often too close to the fight. I don't like hanging out in bushes and sniping and all that kind of stuff. So this one really does suit my play style, and it allows you to get away with that just because its armor is so good relatively for a medium. So let's take a quick look at my stats. 62% win rate after 100 battles, 983 experience. I would really like that to be north of 1,000. That's pretty dang close to 1,000. That's the sweet spot. If I'm getting 1,000 at tier 8 or above average experience, I'm doing pretty well in a tank. 62% is a pretty good win rate. Now check this out. The numbers we want to look at that are the key to this, or one of the keys to this, is 50% battles survived, and you're going to have a higher survival rate usually with a higher win rate. And then down here, 0.63 armor use efficiency on a medium. Now remember, I'm aggressive. I'm up there brawling with people a lot, even in this tank, or using spots where you're doing a lot of peekaboom and kind of relying on turret armor to keep you alive while you fight. And even doing so, 50% survival, 0.63 armor use. Those are some of the traits of a bobject. Think Object 252. I'm not saying it's an Object 252, but think tanks that you can kind of wander around. You're new to the game, or not very good. You're not good at managing, multiple angles and things, but you just get bounces because the armor is that good. For a medium, that's kind of the case with this tank. Remember, the caveat is for a medium. I'm not telling you it's a 252, but it sort of is the 252 of mediums at tier 8, to be quite honest. Just not as good of whole armor, although it's not bad at all. Side scraping, turret use, all that. So I just wanted to show you those two numbers. I ended up doing really well in this tank. Now, we do have to note that with the low relatively DPM, I'm only sitting at 1,673, and that's not a fantastic number. It doesn't really fit a 62% win rate. Still a low sample size, all right? 5 or 6 games go the other way, and it's not as good a looking kind of win rate, right? It's down in the 50s or so. Still, I suspect this is probably a 58% tank for me if I got it to 200 to 500 battles. I really do. And I wanted to mention the DPM because when you take a look at it in the context of the whole package, with a .63 armor use and a 50% survival rate on the tank, it means that I'm in the mid to late game a lot. And when you're in the mid to late game a lot, even if you're not punching out a whole bunch of DPM, you are affecting the battle. And if you're a good player, you can do those small things that help win battles, okay, that may not be easily objectively tracked via stats, right? You're holding a position, you're keeping somebody from moving, you're locking down a part of the map so your team can move in, you're holding a spot till your team can get around and get angles. All of those things you cannot do if you're dead. So you pump out 3,000 and you die in the first third of every game, fantastic. Your DPM or DPG is better on that tank, but you're not around late game to help win the game. You know, there is a point where you pump out enough damage early, even if you die, you've probably created such a lead for your team, they should be able to handle it. Still, the best way to make sure that you win the close ones are to be around, and this tank just helps you be around. It really does, based on the way it's designed. So let's take a look at the two examples that I got, and then you can make your decision at the end of the day whether you want to go ahead and buy this thing at some discount or try to push through and get it for free. But be very careful if all of the reviews you've read have shown that it's a really bad tank because of DPM. That's really one of I think the biggest reason I'm making this follow-up video is the misunderstanding that somehow this DPM thing is really just crushing the life out of this tank, because it just isn't. Yes, I'd love it to have more DPM. That would be awesome. But if it was in the 2000s DPM, can you imagine what a beast this thing would be? And it would, you know, I'm telling you, yeah, a little bit of a buff maybe, but then I'm talking about going from what I'm considering a slightly above average to a well above average tank. And that's not what we want. We don't want a bunch of OP tanks continually being put out there. This is an intriguing tank. It's a pretty good tank. It's a fun tank. And it should definitely be worthy of your consideration. So let's take a look at these two games. Alrighty, first example. Now, what I am not telling you with this tank, I am not telling you that it is the fantastic all-rounder, easy-to-play, overpowered tier 8. And if your definition of a good tank or great tank is that it's overpowered and it's among the best, and that can be true. You know, some people, that's the way they look at the game. They only want to play the best. If that's true for you, then this is probably not a tank you want to consider. But if allowed to do its thing, it can be an absolute monster. Now, this is a all tier 8 battle, which is always good for a tier 8, no matter what kind of tier 8. I mean, even a TVP VTU is going to be happy in a tier 8 battle, or happier, probably happier in a top tier, but you know what I'm saying. Better than seeing tier 10s. So we're just going to kind of hang out right here. Oh, I got to mess around with this. What is going on here? There we go. All right.
Just dinged them.
We dinged them. Now you can see I've got cabbage in this tank, which is fantastic. Some of the best lines in the game, to be sure, especially when he kills somebody and says, "Have fun in the garage, nerd." I think that's probably one of the best. I think it is the best. I don't know what the other commanders have, Commander AF and Tragic. Maybe they have funnier lines, but "Have fun in the garage, nerd." The other one is where he says, "I don't want to alarm you, but we're kind of covered in a bunch of flammable material or flammable liquid or something." It's fantastic. Anyway, good accuracy on this gun. It does take a little bit of aim time. Not too bad, but it is not laser aim time, as in where it just locks in. But once you get zoomed in, it's actually a very accurate gun. The 14.5 actually moved around the corner right there. And this is what I'm talking about object-wise, working areas where your tank has its strengths, and of course with the massive turret, the strong turret on this thing, it can really do a nice job. I am also platooned in this case with Natso. He's in his CS-53. Just the fact that we brought a CS-53 into this fight should give us some kind of cookie. I'm saying, you know what I'm saying? And I think he's got the stock gun still on it, which is pretty funny. So we're going to go ahead and change the angle. I tell him to hang out right there. We'll come around this corner and I'll see if I can find somebody on that other corner. So we're up to 1,200 damage. Yep, there's a 40T over here. Maybe somebody else. Let's find out. Side scraping. The tank can do side scraping. So all those little things that are kind of critical to the game. Using the turret in hold down spots, depression, which I'm not having to worry about right here, but other maps have plenty of spots where you need the depression. The strong turret, a pretty decent upper hull. The side scraping side, the side of the tank is decent for side scraping. It really can do a little bit of it all. It's just not going to jump out and out DPM people. You have to be very careful with the timing of the medium. You may have some timing in your brain. All right, I have a medium tank. Every 6 to 8 seconds I shoot. That's a pretty standard timing, or maybe even less at lower tiers for a medium tank. So you're boom, pull out, boom, boom. You can't do that. It's half that with this tank with such a long reload. So you have to more think of your heavy tank timing than your medium timing. But still, pretty good mobility. The backing up speed is very slow. Pulling back and taking shots like this can seem like an eternity. And really, we've just kind of locked down this middle. We've got guys, we have a lot of map control, although we're pretty thinly spread across the map. They don't have a whole lot of guys down in here, and we have a bunch. So we're just trying to figure out a way. What happens is when you start to win down here in the factories, you have to start thinking about how am I going to now leapfrog forward and put some pressure on these guys. And we were talking about the two guys over on the side here. So I'm going to come around this way with the AT and see if I can't start relieving the side over here. It is 3 to 4, so we are starting to lose a little bit, but it's not too bad. So we'll come around this way and see if we can start taking out the 40T and the 50 TPPR thing. So we'll push in, and I'm thinking, all right, let me just go in here and surprise, 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 take on the 40T, who's kind of waiting for him. I think I got seen right here, and so he's looking. It takes me a while to get my gun on and actually get a shot from him. Don't know where the PR is, so I don't want to just go raging around the corner. T-28 starts going that way. I'm going to come back over here. So you can see decent enough mobility, and then the T-28 actually gets hit. C-45's got us locked down right here.
Bounced off.
Yeah, probably going to bounce off that turret, especially with just the regular. I think is it APCR? I guess it is. It just shoots APCR. I didn't realize that. It does shoot APCR as its standard round. Let's come around here, see if I can work with this T-28 to get rid of the PR. Notice that I do a lot of side scraping with it because it pretty much works. Wasn't really looking. There you go. Little bounce. You gotta love it. So I don't know if he hit the side or the turret, but he ends up going down. And now we've sort of cleaned up a little bit down here in the factories. I really like this tank as a heavy support kind of tank. Now he gets killed by the WZ, so I know the WZ is up there. He's on a reload, so that gives me an opportunity to rage across and not get shot. No reason to go try to take on a WZ, a guy camping in the back. It's one of the biggest lessons I try to teach people. Don't go bringing campers into the game any sooner than you have to. Let them sit in their bush in the back and be absolutely useless. So this is the guy we need to get rid of. Let's go save our Basante, get rid of theirs. And every tank we take out before we engage the guys that are camping in bushes in the back is a win for us.
RNG.
There goes another one. And I tried to tell Natso not to do this. I don't know if he survives. So he's doing exactly what I said not to do, going over there and getting these guys lit up. He says, well, I'll just get behind the slag pile here. I'm like, okay, that's fine, but now you're trapped. That's... well, you know what I mean? You can lead them to water, my friends. You just can't make them drink. That's just the way it is. 6x6 raging across. Try to cut this dude off. Looks like he's maybe going for the artillery. So he comes raging over this way. I think it takes me a while to get this dude dead. Do I miss him? I don't remember. I don't remember. So many games, so many videos made. There he goes. Did we get him? No, we missed. Why? Because we shot right at him, and he was moving at the speed of light, like the wheeled tanks do. I don't really want to get too exposed to the artillery, but I don't have a choice. I need to get a little closer to this dude, so I'm not sniping. And the longer he keeps me busy, the longer my gun is not dealing with the rest of the good tanks. And I just don't want him back behind me, so I'll just snap a llama ding dang. That was pretty awesome, actually. One of the problems with a tank with such a slow reload like this, especially taking on little tanks like that, if I'd have fired and missed that, if I'd actually missed that shot, I had 14 seconds or so, 13 and some change. Before I reload again, that's an eternity for him getting away. So he's just going to keep on building distance and maybe get around a corner or something before I can even get another shot. So that can be very miserable when you're dealing with little light tanks. You know, medium tanks are kind of built to take on light tanks to get rid of these guys. But when you have one with this long of a reload, that can certainly be problematic. So Natso did survive that. He's coming over here into the slag piles with me. Desante's locking down the big factory. The super is over by the cap, jumping on cap just so they know where we have guys. I don't know. That sort of does maybe force them out, but it's a fairly exposed place he's sitting on. I think he's going to take a couple hits here pretty quickly. So we'll just come around this way. I thought maybe we needed to go all the way around, but we don't because they're sort of driving at him. There we go. So the TS5, very armored tank going right at him. We'll put a thump into him. That's a low roll, right? 340. This thing has got a 400 alpha gun. That is kind of disappointing, and you will see a lot of 300 number rolls. I mean, it's just a 400 alpha gun, so not unusual there. A little high roll to get back some of the stuff I lost the first time, 423. Just don't be surprised if you're seeing a lot of 300, a lot of shots in the 300 region. That's just the way it goes. When you're sitting at 400 plus or minus 25, you're going to be 50% above 400 and usually 50% below or above and below 400. Math in public or something like that. So it just works out, man. 3,122. I really like this tank when it's allowed to do what it can do well. Getting pushed by a bunch of the heavies or maybe one of the autoloaders would have been a big problem, but as long as you've got enough friends around, like I did, guys still alive there in the factory, things can go quite well indeed. We've got Natso pushing up over there. The super's still sitting on the cap, and we're trying to see if these guys are going to go ahead and push in. And I'm wondering, yep, so there's probably a guy right in that bush. I'd imagine that's exactly where he is. Actually, he's closer. That really surprised me, to be honest. Like, how did he get there? He's looking at someone else, taking a little shot on him. Boom. There's a 316. That is almost a min roll. That's 16 damage away from a min roll. Holy cow. May have to just shoot through this. Yeah, we'll just go right through this thing. Remember, heat will not go through that tractor. It will be eaten by the tractor. That's one of the nice things about APCR. That's one of the changes, potentially, that they're going to make in the game with the HE rework. And I don't know if I get this shot off. I think we stop before I can get it. Oh, I had the left mouse button pressed, but it just didn't happen. 4 kills, 3,801 damage, and a win for Team Guido and Natso. All right, let's look at the second ace tanker. All right, for the second example, we have the, I wanted to show the 3Ds. I don't know where gaming, I have mixed feelings about this skin, to be quite honest. I don't know. Anyway, I did play it for a while on stream, wanted to show everybody what it looked like, and now we are here on Mines as a bottom tier, which is going to be a very difficult place for a bottom tier medium to do any good. In a tier 10 battle, on Mines in the phone booth, the saving grace here is no artillery. Okay, so a lot of what I'm going to do right here would be extremely difficult with artillery, so keep that in mind. But still, there are games you get where there's no artillery. But I wanted to show you just kind of how the old Bobject works here with the turret. You know what I'm saying? You go into this spot, and when you're talking, less skilled players who are looking for a tank that can survive some hits and tank some damage and keep them alive in situations, this is the kind of tank that can do that. Now, it does have 2 weak spots on the turrets, but this little duel right here is far enough away that they're going to have a hard time hitting those turret spots. Although Leopard's a very accurate tank, so you never know.
That one in.
Boom, so we've bounced 420. We took a hit earlier from him as we were trying to get into this position. Now, this isn't really a place you want to hang out with artillery. Noted, got it. Still, though, when allowed to, and in positions like this, even with artillery, you're in a good spot to be able to do some damage. I'm facing a Lance and C. I've got a Leopard 1 right there. Both these guys I can pin turrets. And he's probably trying to aim in on my weak spot. Little shift, little move. Notice my timing's a little off. I came forward while I wasn't really reloaded. I didn't really need to do that. There's no reason to allow the Lanson to have that shot. So just wait till you're reloaded and then come back out in front of them there. The Pantera, the enemy Pantera was in the middle of the water. For some reason he dies. So we're back here. We got 3 tanks, myself, Natso. Now Natso's going to have a harder time with this. His turret is not nearly as good. So it's a good juxtaposition here. He has to be very much more careful with his turret because he's probably going to get pinned by these guys. Just doesn't have as nice turret. Plus he doesn't have some fantastic red rugs and stuff draped all over, nor does he have any fireworks strapped onto his tank, so that's going to be a problem for him. It's this terrible thing. This poor Lanson is just getting absolutely abused. There's a nice high roll at 437. You got to love that. 347, the one before. Nice low roll. 437, the one after. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing here as long as these guys are giving us shots. There's a 34-2 right there. Take a look. Can't quite get to him. Here comes the Lanson again. We'll just zoom in. And wow, the accuracy. Another thing to note, just the accuracy on this gun is so good. I think mine is sitting at .29 or so with the equipment and things I've got on it. You throw some food on there. Make sure your crew is geared up as good as possible. Look at the Natsu just takes another big 400 hit to the face just because his turret can't handle that. And he ends up killing that guy. So good on him, actually, for standing in and making that dude go away. That poor guy comes out, snapshot for 422. You can see that in this kind of situation, and this is, the game is played a lot like this now, guys. It really is. These kind of peek-a-boom, hold-down spots, nobody really getting aggressive kind of thing. This is pretty standard in the game. So this is a tank that can take advantage of that, object-wise. Object-wise, people who aren't necessarily that skilled at the game, you can get away with this sticking your turret out, aiming in, and getting a shot down range. Now, if the 4005 was shooting me, or the T30, that would be a different subject. I probably would not be poking out here, eating HE from the 4005 every time. But based on the tanks that I'm facing, pretty good tank for it. You know, and these are this is a tier 10 Leopard. The other guy was a tier 8. You saw earlier that in an all tier 5 battle, pretty good expectation of bouncing stuff. I've already bounced 1,060 damage. Look at that. Just picking a shot right there into that guy's turret. I can tell the Leopard's thinking about getting away, and I just make him miss. Maybe a little bit aggressive right there because I was still letting you saw me move. It was a good move on his part to try to take that shot, but I think he knows the jig is up. He's making a runner. Natso takes another piece out of him, which is very nice. So we'll come on up here and see if we can hit him. And holy cow, okay. Pixel sniped, 2,287 damage, 1,060 bounced. Long range shots, man. There's a lot of mediums out there with the high alpha guns that are derpy, that have trouble with those kind of shots. This tank does not. It's a high alpha gun that isn't derpy, and there aren't very many of those. The trade-off is that the reload is really slow. But based on the way the game is played, you can absolutely work around it, and as a matter of fact, it is not always a negative. One thing for you new guys, or average to below average players who are trying to get better, is that it will kind of avoid, what's the word I'm looking for? It will help you to avoid being over-aggressive, right? Tempting you into running in because, hey, I'm a medium, I have a bunch of DPM, let me rage it in here. You have to be very much more careful and considered with this tank. And it will help you learn actually when those times are.
Enemy armor destroyed.
Sometimes I find myself going in way too early. Sometimes, most times, I don't know. A lot of times. I find myself going in on these kind of situations way too early. That's a bounce
for
finally.
the weak spot next time.
So a tank like this will, because of its reload, and as long as you're cognizant of that reload, it will kind of help you to start learning without getting yourself dead. Right? Early mistakes often lead you to being taken out of the game too early, and now you can't learn the mid to late game stuff. When you have a tank with some armor and a slower reload, which forces you to kind of A, be a little bit more careful because of the reload, and B, survive a few of the mistakes early because of its decent armor layout, that will help you get to the mid to late game. So a tank like this as a medium is not a bad training tank for people to start helping them get to that mid to late game area. Force them a little bit to be a little bit more careful and considered but also has the ability to be effective. You know, if you sit back with some of the smaller gun mediums like are out there, you know, 250 alpha mediums, and kind of do the snipe thing like this tank can do. First, the accuracy is usually not as good, and second, they don't hit very hard. Plus, they don't have the pen that this thing has. So what ends up happening is you're much less effective sitting back and sniping at people, whereas this thing is quite effective sitting back and being a little bit more careful. All right, let's wrap this thing up. All right, guys, there you have it. Let me know down below. I know this thing doesn't suit everybody's play style, but I think it definitely deserves another look, especially if you've come at this with the idea that it is low DPM equals bad, or even the idea that it's not overpowered, so it's bad. It really has a lot of things going for it. I very much enjoyed the play style. I liked how the tank could keep you in the fight. I liked the accuracy of the gun. I liked how hard it hit, and the fact that I found myself in mid to late games a lot, having having a vote at the end of the game. That's the big thing in this game. If you want to increase your win rate, is to get to the mid to late part of matches so that you actually have an effect on the win or loss, on the wins or the losses. So there you go. It's Friday. You got a couple days to think about it and whether you want to go ahead and try to get the 122 TM. I think it's a lot better than many people are saying it is, but I will not say it's overpowered, and that, my friends, is a very good thing. So good on Wargaming, actually, for creating what is a unique and interesting tank without making it overpowered. And that's not easy, folks. That is not easy. That is all I've got. Thanks to Wargaming for the access to the tank. More importantly, thanks to the community out there for coming and checking out the videos. Like I said, let me know down in the comments whether you picked this up and maybe some of the reasoning on whether you may have or may not have decided to grab the 122 TM. If you were in the last leg of that grind, good luck to you guys. I think I only got to, so far, this is Tuesday that I'm doing this. I've only got so far to level 5, so I'd have a 50% discount right there. All right, folks, thanks for coming by. That is it. We will see ya.